to comply with the open meeting laws. So we got some minutes here from our last meeting, so we'll just read through these and everybody can look at them, and if they're happy with them, we can approve them. Thanks. You good with them? Yeah, okay.
I wasn't here, so.
Yeah, oh, okay. Somebody wants to make a motion to accept them?
I wasn't here.
Oh, you weren't here,
Motion
okay,
to accept
okay.
the April 24th meetings, can we do that with?
You can do it.
Yeah, we can do it, and I can second it, I
Yeah,
guess, and then you can vote on it, I think,
okay.
yeah, okay, yeah, so, all right, I'll second it, all in favor?
Mm.
Okay, all right, that's good. Sign these, and we'll have to get Bill to sign this at some point. Thank you, sign that, thank you. Shut this stupid thing off here, hold on. Sounds like a bummer. I know, yeah. Okay, good. All right, local upgrades and variances, 85 Fairview Drive, John Burns Irrigation Well.
Good evening. My name is John Burns, as you mentioned, with Blackbrook Realty. We have two residential developments here in town, so the one I'm here for this evening is the Villas of Pleasant Valley. And starting in about '02, there has been a series of wells. I believe there's been 11 wells that have been put in, with an additional 2 were put in within the last month. And they're for irrigation only. We have town water and town sewer throughout the development for domestic use. So what I'd like to see if we could do is, we have not had to do the testing on the past wells, and now we're just doing the final ones in there for irrigation only. So rather than do the testing, it's an expensive test, we're looking to see if we can get a waiver on those final wells.
Okay.
I could go on and on, but that's
Right,
it. in a
yeah, okay,
nutshell.
no, okay, yeah. Yeah, we started that, I don't know when, it was a few years ago that we required water testing, the full gamut of testing for irrigation wells, and we had a pretty, long debate about it. But I don't know, what do folks think about, since they're on, they are on
Public water.
public water and public sewer, so I don't know what opinions people have.
They're on public water and public sewer, there's no wells at all?
There's no there's irrigation wells only, there's 11, this is gonna be a total of 13 now, right?
About 13 years.
Yeah, they're irrigation wells only.
Didn't we talk about, even with irrigation wells, some things could go wrong too, or?
Well, we did because I think one of the reasons we did is because for instance, if somebody has a typical residence, where they have an artesian well for their potable water, and they may drill and it may not have the volume to support a sprinkler system, so they drill an irrigation well, and then don't test it, and then in the future they have a problem with their potable water well, so they just tie that in, right? And now you've got people, kids and the whole household drinking out of water that was untested, right? So that was our fear. At some point, some people may even innocently tie in a untested irrigation well to a potable domestic water supply, and that was a reason. But it is expensive. It's, I don't know, what is it, it's a couple $1,000 worth of testing.
Oh, $2,500.
So we required, and then we talked about pulling some of the tests out, for only looking at, for instance, when a house is sold and the home inspector comes to test for bacteria and that kind of stuff, not the full gamut for a new
Right.
well. We talked about that, and we ended up settling on the full array of testing for a new domestic well, if you have an irrigation well, which is obviously considerable expense, and that's what he's here to try to get a waiver on. This may be a unique situation a little bit where this is it's on already town water, it's on town sewer, and it's a real established residential community, not just a single family house. But I'm open to suggestions, and that's how we got here.
Okay.
Because they're not gonna be drinking it, they're just gonna be sprinkling it.
Right, and you already have how many in there?
About 11 wells, and we had to do the testing, and it just, quite frankly, that would have been done by now, but I don't know if you remember the economy tank back in 08, 10, somewhere in that area, so there's just, it's a possibility that we could need one more well, but that would be at maximum. We're in the last section, there's 111 units in there, and about 90, somewhere around 90 are built right now, so this is to service the last section.
Yeah, I would think of an exception on this. I mean, they already have all those other wells in
Other
there
wells in there, yeah.
that aren't tested.
Right.
Under the
That's-
condition they're not to be used as drinking water.
Drinking water. The other thing that enters into this, which is, I don't know if we ever got clarification.
I
It was
actually
the
spoke
heirs.
to Jim about this situation today to ask his input,
Yeah,
and he still had concerns about aerosolization.
of
Of-
arsenic and other
That there still
contaminants.
could be contaminants in the water and then be aerosolized, so.
Yeah, that's what I was referring to, that we had that conversation.
Yeah, we had that conversation, and the potable water did, yeah, discuss, so, does anybody know what's likely to get aerosolized and not, and we could just test for those things? I don't know, somebody must know, I certainly don't know, somebody must know, either at the EP or, does Jim know?
I don't know.
You didn't discuss it?
He may know, but I didn't ask him that specific question.
And what's the chances of that?
I'd probably pretty slim, I think.
He just said about chemicals, being treated on the lawns and getting into the water as well.
Yeah, that would be companies that get hired. I mean, we couldn't really go down that road.
That's us.
Yeah.
I think the only thing I'd add to your comment is it's been going on like this for at least 15 years, probably 16,
Right,
and with no issues.
right.
So I don't know if I dare mention grandfathering. I don't know that applies in this case here, but
Yeah, probably not. I mean, we try to be as flexible as we can, considering that, we're always concerned about this naturally occurring arsenic plume that comes right up through central Massachusetts, and we have had wells tested, with, if you had long-term exposure to the arsenic that was in the water, you definitely have some health problems, that's one of the things that we're always concerned with, right? And
I think you have to ingest arsenic. I don't think it's airborne where you
Yeah.
can breathe it. I think you have to swallow it.
that may well be true.
I don't think I'd wanna hold this up for, chance that.
Right, I agree with you.
Right, and he already has 11 other
Right,
wells
the
there.
wells in there, yeah, right. This is, that's why we
Spraying
discussed
on
this.
the lawn now.
Yeah.
Were
Talking
the other
about-
11 already tested?
No.
no,
No.
None of them were
required to be
tested.
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 And everybody's still doing health-wise, so I think they're doing okay.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
yeah, so we,
I'm fine with
Oh,
it, as
yeah,
long
okay.
as the condition's not to be used as drinking water, they would have to
Yeah.
go through the testing.
okay, yeah, and so this is for two
This is for-
Yes, for the 2 wells, we may need a third one in there, we may, and it depends on the yield and the area that we're doing.
Okay.
If you're familiar with the area at top of Armstrong Road, we have one towards the beginning and at the very end, and we might need one in the middle.
So if we gave you a variance for up to 3,
Correct.
that would be
fine.
probably the best way to handle it, right?
I don't wanna drill the well any more than
Right,
I mean,
right,
it's an expense, but
Yeah,
it's just a
right.
matter of coverage.
right.
So we make a motion to accept, the up to 3 wells?
Yeah, up to 3 wells of variance to the water. Yeah,
Variance.
okay, have one
The
wants to.
condition then not to be used as drinking water.
A second?
Second, all in favor? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, you're welcome.
Appreciate it.
Okay, you bet.
Thank
Good
you,
luck.
Judy.
Okay, you're welcome.
Apologize for being a little late.
That's quite all right.
As I was sitting by my pool, my wife said, "Don't you have a meeting?"
Oh, here you go. That's not as bad as when Jim called me and I was sitting there, I was having
Yeah,
a
having a
steak and a
steak.
beer, and I was like, oh, I gotta get over there. No, that was funny. I hope you have my speaker too, and I let out a bunch of obscenities.
Did you pull
Yeah.
it?
What's that?
No, I was asking
Yeah.
Ken if this was
Let's see,
Yeah.
182 Minchog Road, Andrews Engineering.
I
Andrews.
did talk to him this evening, so I do know he's on his.
He's on his way, okay, we'll just skip that, we'll come back to it, okay.
Second, maybe.
Very good, okay. I'll look over for 74 Boston Road, is that, is that in here? Do you know what
I
that?
put- I didn't
That was
write
it, that's
down
just,
the
okay, but it was
It's
just
just one of Jim's.
one of Jim's reviews, either
Yeah,
offset the
so-
groundwater or whatever, okay, the ones that he can do, okay, that's fine. Department, update, I guess you're on board for that if you so desire, if you,
I guess so. Just, we've sent out all of the trade renewals and all of the, solid waste file renewals, and so those are all
okay.
kind of trickling in now.
Mhm.
Task for that.
Okay, all right.
Camps,
Camps.
campgrounds.
Yeah, has anything come up, because I know Cheryl was talking about the inspection at, was it Blanchard? Camp,
The YMCA.
I have
YMCA.
the paperwork, but I do not have I have not seen the binder yet. I do have
Okay.
all their applications, they got that and all.
Because the state was gonna get,
I believe Cheryl's getting some assistance with the state
Yeah,
to help with that.
yeah, okay. Because they open right after school closes, right? So, I mean, that's like,
They open June 24th.
And the 20th.
yeah, right after, yeah, so
Yeah.
they better,
School
yeah.
gets out, yeah.
Not a lot of, I'm not sure, we'll have to, are you here for a specific property that's on the, on,
184, 180, yeah, 180.
Oh, so you're just waiting for Andrews?
Yeah.
oh, Wayne for Andrews, okay, good, well, hopefully he'll be here in a few minutes, all right, welcome.
Whatever.
There's all kinds of, be bored to tears by the time they show up. Let's see, old new business, okay, these rail regulations in, supplemental Title V, I've spoken to Jim about both these issues. He's gonna look at the stuff, we need to get him on board, and this is a super busy time, with all the, perks and septics going on, so, over time, my guess is, to be perfectly honest with you, and there's no rush about it anyway, I'm guessing it's gonna be a fall project by the time Jim, is able to really sit down and go through it and be thorough with it. So it'll give us plenty of time to look at it too, because since Jim's the person who's signing off on this, stuff we need to get he's gotta be happy with the product. The fine schedule, we, talked about that, the process for that, if we were to go ahead and do that is, there has to be a public hearing. We gotta come up with a fine schedule, they've gotta be approved by the selectmen, and they've gotta be voted on at a public, we'd have a public hearing and vote on them.
For what?
For fine schedule, for
Oh, yeah.
nuisance type
Nuisance.
stuff, I know, there's been various points of view on the board here, I'd like to bring it up for more, I think it would be there's not many times when we needed it, but it would give us more horsepower when and if we need it, again. Most residents are quite cooperative, but, occasionally we run into one that's not, or it might motivate them to be more cooperative. I was thinking if we've always given people the benefit of the doubt, and then plenty of warning with, orders to comply with regard to certified mail and whatnot. And generally that takes care of it. So, I was thinking if, $50 a day fine for, a couple of weeks, upping it to, $100 a day after, 2 or 3 weeks. if people fail to, just categorically ignore our jurisdiction over things. But I don't know. I mean, I know, Bill, I know you weren't really keen on it, but it would be another tool in our toolbox if we needed it. I just wanted to throw it out there for discussion again, for whatever it's worth, since we never really came to any conclusion on it.
I mean, I'm fine with having it in our toolbox.
Yeah,
It's
right.
up to us to put it out there if we need
Okay,
to.
yeah, all right.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, are you?
I mean, if it cuts to the point where we wish we had it, at that point it's too late.
Right, yeah, right, that's the thing, and we've been,
But to have it, not use it.
yeah, but
Fine.
no, you go, okay,
Okay.
all right.
That's gonna be well defined though, because.
Right, oh, it has to be very well defined,
Yeah.
yeah. So why don't we, with the idea that we're gonna move forward with that at some
Yeah.
point, if you guys, ladies and gentlemen, give it some thought over the next month or so to come up with a fines, or what you might think we would reach some fine schedule, and I'll take a look at some neighboring towns, and see what kind of fine schedules, I'm sure some neighboring towns have some, and then we can come up with, something, and we'll tie this all in maybe in the fall to the public hearing we're gonna have on changing the well regs and the advertisement for that, would be the most efficient way to do it, so, all right, good. So we'll move forward with
Don't
that.
we have some fine schedules, like with the septic or the trash haulers, or, I thought we had something
we-
before.
We have fines for like tobacco violations,
tobacco we do.
we have violations for that, we,
Yeah,
yeah.
I think it's
Um,
just tobacco. if I remember
Tobacco, we
correctly.
had fines, and
We definitely do for tobacco.
Yeah.
I don't remember about rubbish.
But
Maybe
that's
for
kinda a
rubbish
little
is
different.
fine.
Yeah, it's kinda
Yeah.
gonna be set up a
We
little
don't have
Yeah.
one for nuisance though.
Right.
Yeah.
That is the thing, a lot of towns don't necessarily have fine schedules, it's just linked to the specific regulation. There's a fine associated with each category,
Right.
Okay.
rather than a
And
nice
then
neat, I don't know that I've ever
Right.
seen a nice
Right.
neat fine schedule.
Yeah.
Well, we can make one.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can make
It's
one.
the first time.
You know, I can call Cheryl Sabara too, would probably be useful on that. I'll go for her. Maybe she give us some ideas. Yeah. Let's see. Nuisance and planning regulation, that's something I have a call to Cheryl Sabara about exactly what qualifies as a nuisance and formalizing that. I have not heard back from her.
Did you wanna jump in?
Yeah, you wanna go back?
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah, yes, well, I jump back to, 182 Manchog Road, Andrews Engineering. Welcome.
Thank you.
Yep.
You want the tripod up there?
Yeah, maybe. Sure, I'll give these two. Want these?
Yes, I did.
Good evening. Thank you on behalf of TJJ Development. My name is Steve O'Connell from Andrews Survey and Engineering. We're here for a local upgrade for a tight tank at 182 Manchog.
Do you have the plans over there?
I do have some things.
There's only one actually,
Jim, have the others?
that's not it.
That's not
That's not it.
It's been changed.
Okay.
Oh, you know
I
what?
didn't think there was another
It's being
sign.
passed.
Okay.
It's being passed to the other departments, sugar.
Okay.
I have a
You'll
note
just-
on that.
just have to explain it.
Yeah,
since-
okay.
Cause it's distance away.
Thought the color would help, hopefully it does. Let's see if I can grab a couple of contrasting colors. So it's an existing residential dwelling. What I'll do is I'll highlight the existing house right there in pink. So that's the existing house. And there's a detached garage out front. So we're currently in front of the ZBA. We've actually been through 2 variances with the ZBA. Both were approved, but then due to subsequent changes in the architecture, we're back in front of the ZBA. This time for a special permit because of, they changed their procedures. So they have no problem with our current application, but they just want to know that the tight tank will be approved technically, and then regulatory from the board. So, proposing a reconstruction, there'll be improvements to some of the existing zoning nonconformities. But one of the key components to the overall site development, it has an existing well right here with the blue dot. And you can see the 50 and 100-foot radius. So there's the 50, and then here's the 100 out here. Now, with the existing well location, we're able to stay more than 100 feet from where we believe the septic is over here on the abutting property up by Lidstrom's. And then there's an existing well over here on the abutting property to the south, owned by Robert Living Trust. There's an existing cesspool, more or less under the deck of this part of the house. So, at one point in time, our plan was to bring the tight tank to the front and drill a new well out back, and that would have put the new well within 100 feet of what we believe to be the septic leaching area from their property. But then after working with the client, talking to a couple different pumpers, they felt like this area could certainly be pumped without any extreme measures. It would allow us to keep the well, which is conforming in many ways. The tight tank, 2,000 gallons proposed, monolithic. It would be outside of the 50-foot well radius. We're more than 10 feet from the basement of the proposed house. We'd be 5.5 feet, 5.6 from the property line, and 2.6 from the property line, but realistically, the occupation line goes all the way out here to the lake, which is another 25 feet.
It looks like you haven't set up any HomeKit
Sorry about
accessories.
that.
Question?
Yeah, that's a problem too, I like that. My phone goes nuts too.
My goodness, it's on mute too. I don't need her talking to me in the middle of it.
So, given some of those existing site constraints, we felt like this was a very reasonable and realistic option. From an installation standpoint, we'd obviously would work while the demolition of the house was going on to get the septic system installed, and get the tight tank installed, and like I said, I think without having to drill a new well and introduce different nonconformities, we think that this is the best scenario.
Is that a full-time residence?
I mean, it's not designated as anything special. It's a second home. Actually, it's a third home. So full-time probably isn't realistic, but probably more seasonal. So the owner has a property in Northbridge. They also have a house in Vermont, and then
Is it 2 bedrooms now?
yes.
And what are they looking to make it?
Next one question.
There were some house plans.
Yeah, so we designed it for 3.
You can't increase flow to a tight tank, right?
Yeah, no, so it must be an existing 3.
I'll get the first one. So this is,
Did you see those notes I wrote on that plan, Diane?
Yeah.
That was from Jim today, and I needed to relay that to Steve, because I don't think he's aware of it.
I'm not.
Floodplain?
Yeah, Jim wants,
Jim,
can you remember any?
Yeah, need elevations of floodplain due to close proximity. Jim's okay with the variance and local upgrade requests,
it's
still in review.
Yeah.
Did you get that, Steve?
Flood thing down that area, our lawn is level with his lawn pretty much so. If it reaches the flood level,
It's gonna reach the flood
it's
level.
over the dam.
Looks that way out of the
Yeah, I think we're good with the flood elevations, but that's information I can certainly provide.
this is a 2.5 bath.
The
So our
bedrooms.
Our zoning board application, states it's a 3-bedroom. And I believe that to be the case. I'm just looking for the assessor's record card.
For 182 Manchog Road,
Yeah.
I have one right here. Thank you.
Yeah, we always,
It's showing
we
us
always
as three.
frequently
What
have,
does the card say there?
but the card, remember, how the assessors count bedrooms is not how we count bedrooms. It doesn't really even, the assessor's card, we've been through this, that's why we do bedroom counts, right? Because the assessors, how the assessors count bedrooms is not how Title V
I
defines a
agree.
bedroom. In general, when we go out on these bedroom counts, I can't think of one that it hasn't worked in favor of the resident. It's at least been bias neutral, and most of them work in favor of the resident. So just with the field card, you can almost ignore the bedroom count.
It actually says 2.
It says two, okay.
Our
Could
intention
you,
is not to increase
I want to
the
just get
flow.
opinions from the people, what they would consider a bedroom, what they would consider not a bedroom, because we can't increase flow to a tight tank, right?
That's correct.
It's on the hill.
So, and we need to, do you have the existing floor plan of the existing
So this
house?
is the water down here.
Because that would be useful.
The assessor's card has a little bit of information.
Oh, yeah, yeah, that would be good. That's a good point. Let's see.
That's 4 unit.
Bedroom down?
What's bedroom?
So this is, it's a single level home right now?
Bedroom deck, kitchen.
Well, no, you can definitely walk out onto the deck in the, from the basement.
Yeah.
Is that what they're considering?
Yeah.
Maybe a bedroom?
No, that's a screen porch, that would be a bedroom.
Yeah, so
Family room. Game room. Summer kitchen,
Looks like,
2 kitchens?
I'll have you compare those to that, see what you.
It's 3 floors.
Yeah.
So the summer kitchen would walk out to the patio below the deck, and then the upper level kitchen would be up on the main living level with access to the deck above.
What's the total square footage of this proposed home?
1, 2.
The footprint is 1,415 square feet. Didn't calculate the square footage, but if that's generally at 2 levels, then we're looking at 2,800.
What's all that gray area up front, parking?
So that's existing, yeah, it's generally existing, there's some existing pavement that goes up to the garage, but we're gonna pull that in and go up to the front of the garage, and this is existing gravel that generally goes out. The street's pretty far away, I mean, I say it's pretty far away, but at this scale, it's pretty far, it's at 10 scale, it's pretty far away, so it's about.
like the road there.
So-
Sorry, but the distance from the garage to the road is about that.
Yeah, it's a
That.
scale.
Yeah, about 10.
That's the property line that's way in there.
Yeah, this is the property line, right, so it's about 10 feet to the road from the front of the existing garage. We're gonna improve that. It's gonna be about 20 feet when we're done, because the house is gonna go back to the garage will go back 14 feet away from the property line, and it's another 6 or so feet to the street line, so we're gonna be improving that. Like I said, the zoning board has no concerns, they see this as an improvement, but given the third time around here, they wanna make sure all the ducks are in a row.
What changed from the second time? Can I ask you that?
The garage is attached.
Or the garage can be attached, who's gonna move it?
Gonna
Parallel
demolish
to
the
the house.
existing garage, and it'll be connected, physically connected to the house.
It's like Pat, next house down from us, we're 184.
You the Lidstroms?
No, we're 184, right there.
Okay.
And then the next house down, she had it attached there, so she staggered it just like you're doing.
Yep.
I mean,
That's the garage.
I think the bigger concern is, from my standpoint, is the reasonableness of whether we're vastly increasing flow. You know, that's, I think, that's
And
my
they're,
question.
they're aware on that tight tank that if they're using it full-time at that flow, they're gonna be pumping it like every 8 days, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's proposed 2 bedrooms. Our client's an older couple. expect this to be, one of those, lake party.
Yeah, the problem is, they
Like
sell the
you sold.
property, and
Yeah,
the
exactly,
issues we
sold.
come up with is,
Sure. Yep, I don't disagree.
this goes with an
This would
elderly
be the
couple, and then
deed
they
restriction.
sell it to somebody with 3 kids, and,
Deed
and they,
restriction
in
on-
4 days, they're pumping the septic system, I think they
Right.
get successful.
Three
You don't
bedrooms
realize
that
how
they
much
wanna
effluent
propose
you
for
generate
this?
until you collect every drop, as we all know.
That's true, so
This
you gotta
is
call the
3.
pump
Yeah.
truck.
You can have a 3-bedroom system design, you just can't have 3 bedrooms on the house, I
Right,
believe, is
so
that
yes.
correct? You can over-design the system but not have a 3-bedroom house, so that is why you would do the deed restriction.
So
I
we
believe.
sized it for the flow of 3, but we proposing 2 bedrooms. That
This-
would help with the frequency of the pumping.
There's
but-
no way to get any kind of even alternative septic
I
system
don't think
in
there's
there.
enough room.
No, there is not. We've been down this road a couple
Yeah,
times
okay,
with
alright.
Jim.
This goes downhill.
Yeah, I see there's a lot of.
Significantly downhill.
Yeah, so,
Yeah, this is 30 feet lower than the road.
yeah.
My big question is, it needs to stay. Whatever number of bedrooms are there now,
Yep.
we are bound by Title V.
That would be a
And
deed
that's not a local reg,
restriction.
right? That's nothing
No, that's CMR.
we're bound.
That's
to-
Title 5.
Yeah,
I agree.
so, this is almost one of these situations where probably have somebody at gym or meet somebody, who needs to go out and count.
No, they're
Right, but-
proposing a 2-bedroom house,
I know they're,
so it's just a 3-bedroom system, so that's why you're gonna put a deed restriction requirement.
I think
That's what you typically do.
we've had
we're not with a
houses
tight,
before.
this is a little different because it's, but if they only, you can, if it's a 1-bedroom house that's sitting there, right? They can't build any more than 1-bedroom house.
It's a 2-bedroom.
But the 2-bedroom according to the assessor's off card, which means nothing. Okay, the assessor's cards do not apply to Title V. They count we count bedrooms totally different. And usually it works in the favor of the resident, because I think assessors use a closet or something, I don't know what. Their definition of a
Closet's a
bedroom
bedroom.
is not a Title V definition of
That's
a bedroom,
assessors, yeah.
so that's why we go out on these, the field card maybe gives us some idea of how big the house is, but as far as Title V bedrooms,
Yeah.
they don't, they count bedrooms totally different than us.
Yeah, it's a
And,
good
and we
size.
will go on these bedroom counts, by the way, it's always been at least neutral to the resident, and I'd say at least 75 or 80% of the time it works in the resident's favor, because there's something we can count as a bedroom that the assessors didn't,
Sure.
right?
Sure.
So, so if it's a 1-bedroom house, they can't increase flow to a tight tank, right? It doesn't, they're stuck with a 1-bedroom house.
We'd be stuck with a 1-bedroom, right? But I've been outside the house. I haven't been in the house. It's a big house. Would you agree? It's a good sized house for the lot.
Yeah. Medium sized.
Yeah, relative to the size of the
It
lot.
was kind of, in the past, in the history, it's been overcrowded, and there's been problems with the septic system,
Yep.
Yeah, well, getting on a tight tank would obviously alleviate those problems, but,
It's if you saw the house size, you'd say it was at least a 2-bedroom.
okay, so you're pretty confident, based on what's there,
Very confident.
that it would be a
I was
2-bed.
thinking it was probably 3.
A 3.
The assessor says it's 2, and we're only.
Yeah, well, that's a
proposing
typical
2.
example, that we may well count as a 3-bedroom house.
Yeah, yeah,
It's very likely.
yep.
It's very likely that we would count it as a 3-bedroom house. So,
There was too many people looking at
Yeah, but you got a tight tank, right? Tight tank.
No, it's just if you want, I didn't hear.
I'm
If
sorry.
you wanted to add in, please do.
yeah.
People who had it before rented out and rented it to a lot of people. And
Yeah.
that's part of the reason they had so much trouble with the septic system. The whole bottom of the house smelled just.
Okay, it was way over capacity, yeah.
Way.
Well,
And they, everything they did was not, they would have had a closet as a bedroom.
So this is a good thing.
This will be an improvement.
A tight
I'm
tank
glad
is a
they're-
whole
I'm glad
different
they're-
scenario,
Right, yeah, right.
because even if you're over, if you have 50 people in the house, the tight tank will stop
Right, yeah, right.
at the
An
end of
alarm-
it. The
alarms
alarm
will
goes
go
off,
off
and the tight
and they
tank
have to-
stops,
they
and
have
then
to
you get
pump
back
it.
up through your
Yeah.
toilet.
Yeah, right.
It'll back up that far.
Can I ask,
Sure, go ahead, absolutely.
I have heard that they intend to rent it out. does that,
It does, we don't,
don't
I
get
don't, that
involved in
doesn't,
that.
Control that.
so
doesn't
but
affect.
would that affect the amount of usage?
Yeah, but it's, I mean,
You know, if you're renting
right,
for
as
a
much
couple
as you
weeks.
don't like it, right, as much as you don't like it, that's Title V designed for 3 bedrooms. You know, if they're gonna pump it every 2 days, then that's
Yeah.
what they're gonna do,
Right, yeah.
unfortunately. As long as they don't make a hole in it, so it disappears on its own, and the pumping
it's-
records are turned in.
If it's that close to the lake,
It's not gonna come out of the tank.
Can't back up.
okay. And the other thing is, now I know when you had the design, you had it there and you moved it over there and then, right sort of where you pointed is a humongous boulder, I assume that would not be a problem and you just get rid of it or something.
Yeah, yep, I've seen that boulder, it'll probably be split and then removed.
It's huge. So the tight tank is not, there's no possibility of it going into the lake.
No, it's like when a monolithic tank means that there's no seams in the tank, it's a solid concrete tank. So there's an alarm elevation, in this case 29 inches off the bottom of the tank, the alarm would come on. And even once the alarm comes on, you still have some storage above the alarm.
Well, I mean, I don't know about this
Yeah.
kind of stuff. What happens when the alarm goes off
You have to pump
and
it.
it gets too,
You call
Better
the
call
pumper.
a plumber.
Yeah, so the elevation in which the alarm is set to go off gives time for the pumper to come.
Yeah, so it's 2,000 gallon tank, so the alarm will go off around 1340, about 2/3.
Did you,
So
did
then
you
they still
design the
have
septic
600
system?
gallons worth of
I'm
storage.
sorry,
So you still have 600 gallons worth of storage before it'll start to back up in their house or.
and what's the, life, how long does the tank last?
Longer than you and I.
Yeah, quite a long time.
Yeah.
long time.
Yeah.
And we collect, they have to submit pumping records. The pumping companies have to submit pumping records to us, for instance, so if we were to see that, when places are on a tight tank that aren't getting pumped, that raises our curiosity.
Okay.
Well,
So-
they have 3 houses, so
Right, yeah, right, they're probably there, this is probably a perfect scenario for a tight tank as is now, but who knows if they sell it or rent it, it doesn't sound like they're gonna rent it, but,
They would overdo, but
Right.
if they rent it out a lot,
They have no
Right,
intention of
and they
renting
don't
it
have-
out.
those are the,
Can't
those are the
control
floor
features.
plans for this place.
Owners,
They don't have much of a choice for a tight tank, it's just the size of the house is what is questioned.
Right, the size of the house,
is that your determination on tight tanks, the size of the house, not the number of bedrooms?
No.
Or a whole bunch
But
of
they're
things?
changing what's there now, so the tight tanks, you gotta allow somebody to do something. So if they can't feasibly put a septic system in there, you gotta allow them to put a tight tank in, you know, and size it appropriately. But then, you know, obviously, we wanna make sure that they're not building this
Right.
enormous 2-bedroom house that really is 8 bedrooms.
right, yeah, and you can't increase flow, so if there's a 2-bedroom house there, they would not be able to build a 3-bedroom house. You can't increase the flow, the amount of effluent flow to a tight tank. It has to stay a 2-bedroom house. Right? So it would have to stay. Now, and we were just talking about that, the assessor's field card, this card, where the assessors go out, they count bedrooms differently than we do as a Board of Health under Title V. So we in this case, it's likely we will go out, one of us will actually go there and look at the home to determine the number of bedrooms per the way the Title V
how do
regulations.
you count them, that's different?
It's anything over, what is it, 70 square feet? I think it's a 6-foot, 9-foot ceiling for existing construction, 7'3" for new construction. Has to have privacy, heat, and a window. That's a bedroom. So like the people think a closet doesn't have anything to do with it. Assessors, I think that's the assessors use like a closet, and I think that's where,
They walk-in closets.
yeah, right, yeah. So,
Yeah,
so that, so that's maybe an appropriate thing for go out and count bedrooms?
yeah.
Yeah.
Is that
You can,
question, the tank that you designed, was it designed for 3?
It was designed for 3. We're proposing 2, it was designed for 3, so it's got a little bit more capacity.
Yeah, which
Hopefully
is
addresses some of your
beneficial to everybody and doesn't hurt anybody.
agreed, right?
Right.
It's a little bit more costly of a tank to put in, but it gives a little bit more of
Yeah,
some breathing room.
it's a better system, period.
Joe, you've been in this home, the existing home, right?
I've been on the outside a number of times.
A number of times. Is there a way for us to get access to get in?
We can get access, yeah.
I think they were using it as a 3.
Yeah,
1, 2, downstairs.
You know, they had 20 people.
I know, I know.
So I have a zoning board meeting scheduled on June 6th.
6th.
Are you meeting you won't be meeting
No,
before
Well,
trying to think of how we could do this.
that. Is there a conditional?
That's what I'm thinking now. Make a conditional thing pending a satisfactory bedroom count. I don't know if it makes sense or not.
I mean, we could approve it,
well,
hence a board member.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Verify.
Jim,
Still
Phil's gotta review it.
Put
Right.
a note on here.
Yeah, Jim's gotta review it anyway.
But we
sounds
have
like.
to basically, right, pending Jim's approval.
Yeah.
Right, because you were gonna subject to technical review by Jim.
Right.
Right, so we could
Add a
approve it,
condition that-
we could approve it, hence is Jim's approval, and talk to Jim about doing the bedroom count, and that could be part of his approval process.
Okay.
And a deed restriction.
Yeah, deed restriction. But you go before, you said zoning on the,
June 6th, that's.
and you needed, they needed this in place to move forward with zoning.
Yeah.
They
yeah,
need
and-
Jim's approval?
Well, actually.
They need the,
Some sort of information that the tight tank will be approved.
will be approved.
You know, more likely than not, this board's action on the request is more important to the zoning board than Jim's technical approval, because Jim's technical approval would
Right.
still rely on your issuance of the local.
Right,
regulations.
Well, in the worst case, I think you end up with a 2-bedroom house, right?
Right. I would agree.
So you could go to zoning with that, and then there's some question as to whether it may be a 3-bedroom home, the way we
Exist-
count
yeah, At the end of the day, we're
right?
proposing 2. So if it's an existing 2, then we're not increasing it. If it's an existing 3, then technically we're decreasing.
Right. You just can't go wrong with that.
No, no problem with it.
Okay, good. Excellent. I don't even know if we need to go out there and count bedrooms in that case.
The original house is 5 rooms, not 4 rooms,
Right,
which is
Okay.
more typical of
right.
more than a one-bedroom house.
So what do we got for variance, what do we?
We're giving what specific variances are you looking for?
We are looking for local upgrade required for tight tank to be located less than 10 feet from a foundation and about 2.6 feet from a property line.
Okay.
Okay, required tight tank to be located less than 10 feet from one foundation, 2.6 on property. So, I would make a motion to accept the variance, hence Jim's final approval of the review of the plan to upgrade for the required tight tank to be located less than 10 feet from the foundation and 2.6 from the property line, and a deed restriction for 2 bedrooms.
Okay.
Seconded.
Okay, all
Yeah.
in favor?
Right.
Very good. And I will be, someone will be in touch about whether we need to get out there and count bedrooms. Did everybody, did Jim see these, house plans? Does he consider the house plans reasonable? You know, there's always an overall reasonableness of.
I believe so.
That's another thing,
Yeah,
as
the
far as
question
Jim's
about the
technical
floodplain.
review,
Yeah.
can we add that to Jim's technical review?
Right, 'cause sometimes you see those house plans where it says
Oh, yeah.
room.
Yeah, no, they got a
And it
spinning
can
room, they got,
clearly be
yeah,
room.
they,
Yeah.
who did we, what was the room we had?
Oh, it was on the lake, we had, sewing rooms, and we had more rooms than
Dressing
No,
rooms,
Village.
sewing rooms, and we
It
had
actually could've
that.
been like an 8-bedroom.
An art room and everything, yeah, so, we need Jim, not only his technical expertise, we an overall approval from Jim that this house is a, reasonable size house for what we're trying to do here, does that make sense?
Does, yeah.
Okay, good, excellent, good,
Thank you, thank you.
excellent, thanks for coming in, appreciate it very much, thank you, thanks for coming in, we appreciate it.
Back to the lake.
We signed it.
Thanks for coming, appreciate it very much.
Your effort.
Let's see, make sure
I have
it's
a
back in
file.
there, right? You have a file, okay. Here, take that. Before it gets lost in the wrong place and I get yelled at. Excuse me.
Do the house plans still over there?
The house plans are, aren't there? There they are. Okay. Alright, implementing reflexology spa regulations. Did we do anything? I don't even know what
Yeah,
this
you
is.
have to, review that with Cheryl at some point.
Okay, all right. I'm just gonna, I'm not worried about it. Is there anything about TC and groundwater? Nothing new with that, right? And so that LSP, you haven't heard anything from them or
I've
anything?
not heard of that.
No, that's a good thing. Carrier Lane, still ongoing. Apparently, the Ranger thinks there might be some conservation
They're
issue
really
now.
dragging their feet on that, aren't they?
They are, and I don't know what it. That was the latest thing. So
The
and now it's
engineer,
now
or
it's,
is it the owner?
it's the appears like it's the engineer at this point, right?
I believe so.
And it's held up with engineering, so it's not the homeowner. I thought it was the homeowner. Now it appears to be the engineer. So until they get something from conservation for us to nibble on, then that's kind of the end of that. Guinea, have you guys seen the guinea hens at all?
After extensive investigations, and I report that there have been no guinea hens.
No guinea hens.
I haven't seen them out. I've
Haven't
heard
seen 'em.
them, but I haven't seen
Oh,
them.
have you heard of them?
Yeah. Oh, just a couple days. It's almost like he's letting them out, run around the yard a little bit while he's out there and
That's
come
fine.
back in.
Well, that's if he keeps him in his yard. Good for him. That's
Yeah.
All right, I have no quarrel with that.
It's funny too,
Calls them
because
back
now
in.
I have all the hens and everything from across the street in my yard.
Yeah.
Oh,
But I'm good with them.
This weekend I'm pulling all the ticks off me. I'm like, where them damn guinea?
Don't say that. So, yeah, good. Well, I hope, anyway, hope that the issue is resolved and put to bed. Any other business?
We've got,
Oh, the septic report, okay. We've kicked this around before, the issue of cesspools and whether we even allow cesspools or property transfer and that kind of stuff, whether we allow cesspools. Judy, since for what, how many years now have you been doing this? Long time?
Looks like 2014. that's,
14, Judy with her awesome spreadsheets, ran this report.
So I
Of course,
logged in
there-
the Title V reports when they come in,
Yeah.
and I added a field in 2014 at your request,
Right.
to notate whether or not it is a cesspool,
Hmm?
and then whether that passed or failed.
Yeah.
Um,
Most of them are failing in this town. They should be.
Yeah, this is a total of 14, and 4 failed according to this. And of course there were failures on some regular systems too, but the percentage is way higher. I don't know what the percentage is, but there's not many failures on regular systems. So, so the question is, do we want to address this again? I have not spoken to Jim about it. Apparently Judy did. Jim thinks that we should still allow cesspools, provided they pass Title V, but, I certainly not an expert about
I
it.
think they work good where they're allowed. See, the problem that we have in Sutton is we have a really high water table. We have very poor soils. So
When you got all
I
that.
actually find it hard to believe that a lot of them passed if they did their water tables correct. But a lot of that's gonna change, and the Title V's might have to be reviewed, so maybe a lot of that'll get discovered.
Handled for us
Yeah.
with, yeah.
But if a cesspool's working, I mean, you go to Oxford and
That's a different type of soil.
it is, but there are areas that are sandy gravel that they do work great in, so.
Okay.
I mean,
I
have
don't
a
feel
problem with it.
comfortable with cesspools. You got everything going into that one, and it's not being separated, it's not being pumped, and
Well, it should be being pumped just like anything else.
they're not.
Yeah, I mean,
Is there a way that we can tell whether or not they're pumped? I mean, I know I just
Yeah.
heard him mention that.
Pumping
With
records,
that,
well,
there's
if they
pumping
turn them in
records.
the way they're supposed to.
They're not, I don't think they are, because I know one in particular, I mean, he hasn't pumped in 14 years.
Yeah, that's hard as a board to do anything about that. But people
Well,
do that same
passed.
thing with their tanks,
yeah.
you
Right.
know?
I mean, if they don't pump their tank, yeah, it's the same thing, almost.
If it's not going in the ground.
Well, their baffles come down, all the raw sewage is going
Yeah.
out in the leach fields, doing the same thing.
I don't feel comfortable with cesspools, that's all. I think it creates more problems with the groundwater. You think they're gonna change, the state's gonna change that?
They're gonna change, they're gonna be making the boards review them, I think. They're gonna be either witnessing them or reviewing them. So we're gonna be having to charge a fee. Yeah, I think the next year you're gonna see a lot of changes. So again, if half of those were reviewed on how they got water table, the state says you can pump a cesspool if there's not water inundating back into it, then that's a way you can log groundwater. That's not an accurate way to groundwater.
No, it's
If
not.
they pumped it in the summertime, they're not gonna have water coming
Right,
back.
right, yeah, right.
So, you know, unless they're using modern testing from an abutter or from that site, you know, a lot of those probably could fail or would
Right,
fail.
Right.
But it's the same with septic system. A lot of them are in the groundwater prior to 1995.
Yeah,
No, you got a
right.
cesspool 15 feet away from their well.
Well, that's an automatic failure. So you have to have the distances from the
I
well.
know, but
Well, if they're not doing their job, there's nothing we can do about that. You know what I mean?
other than not allow cesspools.
Yeah, but you can have a septic system that's fed 15 feet from a well.
I mean, I'm not being an expert about it, but, you know, Jim thinks that they, again, it's kind of a similar to your
There's not too many
opinion, I
towns
think
that don't not allow them.
Right.
I could probably count them on one hand in all of Massachusetts.
You know, and it's, as you know, it's expensive for these, you know, for a young, you know, family that has young kids and, you know, may
They
not
keep
be.
popping. I mean, you got 14 and 4 of them failed. That's 4 less you have. I mean, as the houses turn over, they're gonna eventually stop working, you know?
Right, right.
They're gonna have to upgrade.
So what do
And
you
the more
think?
strict the rules get, they're gonna eliminate themselves, you know?
Mm,
I'm fine with what they have going on now,
mm.
but
Okay, yeah.
there's no one, like, putting that in as a new house or anything.
No,
So, I mean,
no.
it's-
It's just existing homes.
Yeah.
So what would be the purpose of going after that anyway, or is it just, they just wanna change his hands?
Right,
Yeah.
it needs to be inspected.
You have more flow going into the systems than you did years and years ago. You have wash machines, you have,
Mhm.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's just more liquid going into these systems,
Yeah.
you know?
There's only
But-
10 of them.
Yeah.
Basically, a cesspool, I mean, your tank acts as a pre-treatment. It allows your sludge and your scum to settle out. So a cesspool, it settles out in there. You're not letting sludge and solid into the ground. It's settling in there, and you're making your cesspool smaller. So it's gonna fail eventually. You're not polluting the ground any different. You're not treating the ground any different. It's still filtering through the soil. The only thing leaving is the effluent. So you can't contaminate the ground anymore with a cesspool. That's not true. The solids stay in the cesspool. If they're not pumping it, it's gonna fill with solids and it's gonna fail. It's gonna run out of the ground.
Yeah, we even talked at one point, we kicked around having people, you know, adding a tank between the house and the cesspool to try to get some but it would end up being a nightmare. There wasn't room, and
You're
what are we
only,
gonna do?
you're only trying to help them by doing that, by
Right.
letting their cesspool last
Right,
longer.
yeah, right, yeah, so,
You still have the same stuff leaving the cesspool.
right. I'm happy leaving it, the way it is. Tammy, what do you think?
Since we're not adding to them and we're only getting rid of them as they start to fail, doesn't seem like we should do anything.
Okay.
Yeah, there's
Leave it the
10
way-
more left.
We'll leave it the way it is then, alright. Let's see. Anything else on that? Okay. Meeting day.
Oh, I wanna go over some stuff if you don't mind.
Okay, not at all.
Okay.
All right, yep.
What is, you know, you go into these convenience stores and they have, pastry and food that you can buy. What is the requirements to notify people before they buy it that there's nuts in those products?
They are supposed to have, ingredients on it. They're supposed to be labeled.
They're not.
Mm.
So what is, do they have to put
That's
something, or do
right.
they have to separate the product away from everything else if it's got nuts in it?
Well, nuts isn't the only allergy risk to some people, so you have to list the ingredients. It has to be listed on the label.
Oh, you mean someone that's making their own products?
Well, if you go into one of these convenience stores and you wanna buy pastry or donuts, or, I mean, you just go in there and you put them in a bag and buy them, and you don't know what's in that product.
To like a Dunkin' Donuts, but not a
Dunkin'
Dunkin'
Donuts,
Donuts,
Cumberland
they label.
Farms.
I think you can ask for, Dunkin' Donuts, you can ask for, I think they have the information, it's there for the asking, I think.
Yeah, but
You
these
can ask
other-
for an ingredients list, if you wanna know what's in
Well,
the
it says.
pumpkin
it says-
spice donut, you
well,
can ask
Dunkin'
for.
Donuts, I know they have a place card on their counter that says, please notify your server if you have a peanut allergy.
Right.
So I know they do, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's required or that it's in all the other places, but I know Dunkin's does,
Well, I was just wondering what is,
as far as keeping
Where,
them
where is the
separated.
product coming from in these convenience
Cumberland
stores?
Farms, I don't know. I mean, one nut, and I'm out for 6 hours. It just, and I have no idea that that in the product. And I was just wondering what they are required to do.
Good question.
I can have, I'll ask Ray, our inspector.
I don't know whether they need to put them separate, the ones with nuts and peanuts, or I'm just curious on how they should handle that.
Yeah, ask Ray,
I'll ask Ray.
I don't know.
So these are wrapped, like?
No,
Oh, they're
no.
not wrapped.
They're not wrapped. You just open up the door and you take what you want and put it in a bag. They're not separated from the other products, and Dunkin' Donuts is a little different because they serve you. With these other places, you serve yourself. It was just, how do we stop that? How do we prevent people from having something they shouldn't be eating because it's gonna make them sick?
That's right.
Yeah, good question.
Yeah, it's a good
You
question.
can't go up to the register and say, oh, here, I'm buying this and I'm buying that, what's the ingredients in it? They don't know.
I don't know.
Nuts are an issue.
Oh, it can be a real big issue for some people.
Nuts
Well,
are
wouldn't
big.
a
Right.
person that has allergies know what they can have and not have?
You don't know if the nuts are in there. I never know
Could
if
you say
carrot,
that with anything though, really?
I don't know whether carrot cake has nuts in it. I don't know whether, I don't. And they should have it on there. They should have something, that, or separate, these products have nuts in them, so that you know. You get a migraine for 6 hours because you had one nut, you're very leery about what you're gonna buy next. But I was, if you could find out, because that way it would help. I'm sure I'm not the only one that runs into that problem.
You can ask Ray. Yes, Ray. You get
Yeah.
back to us, yeah.
Do we have any regulations on spraying trees for bugs? Like people go around and they spray a whole tree, a company will come and spray a whole tree to kill the caterpillars. It's airborne, the spray. Do we have any regulations on
I
that?
think so.
Not to my knowledge.
Pesticides.
Yeah.
Pesticides, because they travel,
Yeah, I don't.
Someone hiring an exterminator to come and spray their own personal property.
Well, an exterminator usually sprays around the foundation of the house, or will put in the items in the ground. But these companies are coming in there. They've got these trucks and they're just spraying all these trees, and it's all going up in the air, and that's not healthy.
That's licensed through the state, I believe, on pesticides.
And I was just wondering if we had anything in.
I think so.
Not locally.
No, I think that's, I assume it's a state license and they have to get some training on,
Right.
you can't.
They don't
probably-
tell people to close their windows. They just go and spray. It gets everywhere.
I assume there's some training where if it's a real windy situation and you're up into the house, I assume there must be some, I don't know. We could
They're
look into
doing
that
more
too.
and more of that, especially with the caterpillars.
It's a good
Who's
question.
hiring them? Like the state
The
is coming
homeowner's
around?
hiring them to do it. They come and spray my property, and it just gets airborne, and, you can smell it, you can taste it, and I was just
Yeah.
wondering if we had something in place that,
We don't have, I don't think we have anything that I'm aware of. Not that
I
we
mean, you
could.
can look at DEP approvals for pesticides and see what's approved. I mean, I think at this point in stage, I think most of it's all environmentally friendly, but I don't know if they allow, there's stuff that obviously people question for like the mosquito sprays and stuff, but.
You have to be licensed to do that, 'cause I don't know. My
Oh, well, I
brother
know,
runs a
like in
small farm, and
Millwood-
he's gotta get his pesticide license, he has all
I
these
mean, I guess there's
licenses
something
to
like
apply all
shade-
this stuff.
well,
shade-
you see these guys come in, they're in full uniform with stuff covering their heads and everything else, and they're spraying, but they're not notifying the neighbors or anybody in the backyard next door that they're spraying.
In Millbury, we are part of the Central Mass, mosquito control, and when they spray certain areas, we do, post, on the websites and to the residents that they're spraying,
but any
so close your
homeowner can hire-
windows.
Right,
Any
hire
homeowners can
somebody
hire,
else.
Yeah.
you know.
So,
I
I don't know.
I don't know what that,
Yeah,
but we, I know we don't have, I've never come across anything at our you know, in our department that regulates that or keeps track of, or, no, I don't, there's nothing at our level that I'm aware of. I assume it's I assume the people that, if you're gonna go out and commercially start spraying people's trees with pesticides, I assume there must be some state license that you got to do that, right? From the DEP or whatever. And you just,
I don't know, next time I see him, I will ask them, because it creates breathing problems, a little bit of skin irritation,
Is
so.
there one particular property that does it on a regular basis?
I see it more and more, and they should notify you, because, there was one, and I told everybody that they had to get into the house until the spraying was all done, and it's decided for a half hour. I says, it's not safe being out there, ingesting all this and getting it on your skin. But I see more and more of it, and I was wondering if there was any regulations on that.
there is, but it's not at our level, it must be state.
I will, next time I see
License.
them spraying, I'll confront them.
Yeah, ask them. Be interested to see what they have, I assume they have some kind of license in the truck or something. So it's
Yeah.
okay, you just can't go start spraying this stuff all over.
Do you
Yeah.
know any of the company names that you've seen doing it?
I will-
'Cause
I-
they probably have a website and it probably would state all of their.
Yeah, you could call and ask them what they spray for.
Yeah,
As a consumer, you could say, what do you spray for bugs? Is it?
they spray all kinds of stuff.
I had mosquitoes down once in my house, and it was environmentally friendly, but it was a hideous smell for like a whole day.
Yeah,
Really?
They
Oh,
spray
yeah.
for, they air spray the bushes for ants, the caterpillars, there's a whole list of stuff they spray. An exterminator, if you hire an exterminator, he usually just does around the outside of the house. And I automatically notify the people, this is the day they're gonna keep your windows shut for 2 hours. And I don't spray inside the house at all because it's a poison. But when they're spraying with these big machines and I says, there's gotta be something going on. What's happening with the restaurant on 146? It's supposed to be opening, they stopped working over there. Is that still going forward?
I believe so. There was something, Ray's still working with them and
They own another restaurant.
they do.
Yeah, so they're very in tune on what they have to do and how they have to set it up.
They were one of the ones that, were you at that meeting with the discussion of the architects?
Yeah.
Okay, so they were one of the ones that.
Did we consider them already
Yeah,
in
we're
progress?
grandfathering.
We grandfathered them, okay, good. So
Yeah,
they're-
and they just went, I think they were just at the selectmen a week or so ago for
Okay.
maybe liquor license.
Yeah, they're trying to get a liquor
Yeah,
license.
so they
Yeah,
just
I
did
saw that in the paper, they
Is-
posted
What's
that.
it gonna be, lunch, dinner place, or breakfast, lunch place, or all three?
Lunch
All
and
three,
supper, I
yeah.
think.
Yeah.
Lunch and
No
supper.
breakfast.
Good,
Yeah.
that's good.
Mhm.
Yeah, they're very successful with their other
Yeah, they have
restaurant.
another restaurant.
It's good.
Good,
They can
excellent,
rebuild
it'd be
it.
nice to see that place
Yeah.
busy, so that's good. Anything
Okay,
else? Okay, excuse me, next meeting date, June, let's see,
26th.
June 26th, yeah, that works, June 26th.
that's a
Everybody good with
Tuesday?
that?
I won't know.
Yeah, it's a Tuesday,
So it'll
there's
be
no
close
town
to
stuff
the
going on that we know of, right?
Nothing.
Nothing, okay. We'll shoot for that, June 26th.
Okay. Make
And,
motion to
make-
adjourn?
Sharon, second?
Second?
Okay, good, excellent, thank you, thanks, everybody.
Let me see this here.